Lawtrades is like a marketplace that connects people to legal freelancers, a kind of like a Fiverr Upwork model, but for corporate legal services. But at the time when we launched, I really want to just connect people. I was really inspired by, at the time, there were companies like Uber and Airbnb were really starting to take off. And I saw all these other marketplace models out there for all these industries. And I was just like, well, I know how a law firm operates. I do know why law firms are very expensive because there's a bunch of overhead. They have physical offices in really fancy locations. There's a bunch of partners at the top that make millions of dollars. Like, what if you just got rid of all of that and just connected these independent lawyers directly to clients? Wouldn't it be faster? Wouldn't it be more affordable? And if we took all this offline work and brought it on the internet, could people be more productive that way? But at its earliest days, like Lawtrades was just this website that had two buttons, one that said, I want to provide legal services, one that says I need legal services, and people opted in. And then I made it look like it was automated, but it was just basically me just email introducing people and just letting them figure it out and just learning from how they interacted and what kind of services they need. And I just kept drilling deeper and deeper into that.
At what point were you creating this product where you realized that you have product market fit? And how did you advertise this product too? Did you go on different forums? Did you pay for ads? I would imagine it's 2015, so social media is still around. Leverage social media to find a product market fit, or did you get like boots on the ground, go out there, door knock these law firms? Hey, check out my app. Like, how did you hustle your way and get more users?
Yeah, so it started with that. I eventually recruited my co-founder, who's still with the company now. I went to college with him, and he was in my fraternity. And we did start knocking door to door, going on Yelp, like with a Square reader, charging people $300 to join the platform and promising them clients, even though we had no idea how we would get any clients. And then we realized like that actually is the harder problem to solve for, not getting lawyers to pay for your services. So it started off as like this SaaS subscription model, and like we allowed lawyers to upload their real-time availability. So it was like a ZocDoc for lawyers where clients could go in, click a slot, get a consultation, and they would get the lead and they would pay us in exchange for that. That wasn't really good product market fit. It wasn't sustainable. We were going after so many different practice areas, from divorce lawyers to personal injury lawyers, and we were spread too thin. And eventually we focused around startups and small businesses. And we found, I'll tell you more of this story later, we thought that we had product market fit at that time, but it really wasn't. But it was enough for us to get the attention of 500 startups because we were growing. We were, I think, doing a few $1,000s in revenue a month, and it was picking up, and we were focused on startups. And in terms of social network and how we marketed, I actually wrote a lot on Quora. So I just basically went on this website called Quora, which is a Q&A website. And I just filtered by all the legal questions that people were asking. And I just cracked open my old law school textbooks and just answered hundreds and thousands of them for free. And I just would link Lawtrades at the bottom to check it out. And a bunch of people from Quora checked out the website because I would answer this question like, should I incorporate as an LLC or a C Corp? And I must have answered that in 50 different ways on the site. But it eventually drove some traffic back to the main homepage. And what's cool about Quora is it also like picks up with SEO. So if it is like a really popular question, people can type it on Google, and then Quora will usually be like the first answer there. So not only do you get Quora traffic, you get Google SEO traffic as well. So that jump started a lot of our early growth, a lot of our early users.
What kind of pivots did you make in your product to turn into it what it is today? Because I know that you initially mentioned that you thought you had product market fit, but what was a real pivot that caused the product market fit? But sometimes as you're working inside your company and you're working on your product, you can't see that you don't have product market fit. So what came to that realization where it's maybe we don't have product market fit? And that's extremely difficult for most founders to realize. What was that point for you?
Yeah, it's a tricky thing, right? Because you can grow your company and get paying customers and just assume that you have product market fit. Fundamentally, if your underlying unit economics is not sustainable and your customers aren't really sticky and they're not constantly coming back to the platform and using it more and more, it becomes really hard and really expensive to grow your product. You can be sort of tricked into thinking that you have product market fit, which is what happened to us. We were selling to startups and small businesses, really early stage folks. Eventually got into 500 startups. They invested, I think at the time, 125K. And then we eventually raised like a seed round shortly after doing demo day. I think total round raised in our seed round was a little over $3 million over the course of 2 or 3 tranches. And it was led by Draper Associates. They're like a kind of a big, VC fund. They've done like SpaceX, Robinhood, and all this. So we were like on like cloud 9. We got out of 500 startups and we got all this cash, and we're just like, we're going to grow the crap out of this thing. And at that point, we switched a little bit away from just posting on Quora because it wasn't scalable to doing more ads on Google and running AdWords. And at a certain point, I think we were spending close to 100 grand a month on Google ads, just acquiring lots and lots of customers and just focusing on growing like the top line revenue in the business, even though we were actually losing a good amount of money. Because the problem with the early stage startup small business segment is like the vast majority of them go out of business within the first year. And then the ones that stick around are using you not so frequently. If you think about when you're starting a company, the last thing you want to spend a lot of money on is a lawyer and using it frequently. Like you're trying to like hire for engineer, you're trying to grow your, trying to market, you're trying to spend money on a customer acquisition. You're not just, let's spend lots of money every month and more every other month, like on lawyers. The problem with that is when you're building a marketplace startup, if your demand side usage isn't like predictable and recurring, then that doesn't provide a lot of incentive for your supply side to stay on board, because if it's coming in and out, then they get disinterested, they'll join another platform, they'll take another job somewhere else, and the model sort of falls apart. So at this time, we were losing lots of cash, but we were growing top line revenue. I think at this point we were doing like anywhere from 100 to 250K in monthly top line gross revenue, a sizable amount. And actually most companies would be able to, like at that time, this is I think 2017, 2018, raise a Series A, which is what we were going to do. We're just like, you know what, we're going to raise a Series A and we're going to figure out this losing of money thing later on. We'll just raise a bunch of cash. What ended up happening is we failed to raise our Series A. At the time, we didn't know why, but then we realized that there was a competitor that came out and he took our idea a little bit and raised like $70 million on this idea. And it so happened that he was a famous founder. You guys might have heard of him. His name was Justin Kan, and he's launched this company called Atrium. And we were just like sitting there watching, and he raised from every single VC that we spoke with. And we're just like, oh, so that's why everybody stopped answering our calls. I was like, I get it, right? The guy had like close to $1 billion exit that's doing a legal tech company. Why would you trust a bunch of nobodies from Queens to be able to compete with him? This kind of goes into the second phase of it, where we were forced to get profitable. And at that time, it was like a travesty. And me and my co-founder stopped taking salaries. We like got like laid off like 80% of the team, and we just had to get profitable. And it forced us to basically do that because we had no choice. And at this point, we were all in on Lawtrades. Failure just wasn't an option. It was just like, it just can't happen. So it was a blessing in disguise because it forced us to make this pivot into selling into, and this is like maybe phase 3 of the story, where we find true product market fit by actually selling to legal departments in bigger companies. So we now work with companies like DoorDash, Pinterest, Opendoor, AngelList. And what we do is we sell to the general counsels at those companies who have a daily legal need. So it went from startups that might have an annual or quarterly legal need to companies that use us every single hour because their legal teams are small, but their companies are growing and scaling like crazy. So it seemed we were doomed for failure, but it all made sense. We actually rebuilt the product, but we used pieces of it that worked for the small business side and tweaked it for more longer term enterprise level engagements. And finally, it all clicked. And our LTVs went from like $1,000 to basically close to $1 million. And we sort of attracted even better supply, and the revenue was predictable. And then we kept getting more customers, which attracted more supply. And then we got more supply, it attracted more customers. And then we got to cash flow positive just based off of that sort of pivot. Atrium, as you guys may or may not know, they ended up going out of business. We ended up surviving. Another competitor also went out of business. And now, we just actually just raised our Series A a couple of weeks ago.